This is Lumix 20-60 kit lens. It's usually my go-to travel lens because of its small size, it is light, and it has a really good zoom range. And this is Lumix's new Super Zoom. It's basically the same size as the 20-60, except this one is a 28-200. It has optical image stabilization, capable of half macro, and also is weather sealed. Lumix is continuing to go into the smallest and lightest lenses for full frame. Just a few months ago, they released the 100mm macro lens, which is really small and lightweight, matching the entire f1.8 prime lens lineup, and that's pretty impressive. Okay, so the main downside of a lens that has a huge zoom range is the aperture is going to be a lot smaller. In this case of the 28-200, it is an f4 to f7.1. f4 to 7.1 is not too bad on full frame if you're mostly using it for daytime shots and travel, it will work really well. Super zooms are known for their versatility, but not so much for being the brightest and sharpest lens out there. It's mostly the convenience. But from the test shots I took, it is impressively sharp for a super zoom. I took this lens with me around town, I got a lot of cool street photography shots, and I can definitely say that the zoom range is really handy. For majority of the time, I didn't really feel like I needed to change to a different lens, but there were a few times that I wish the lens was a little bit wider. 28mm was just not wide enough for a few wide shots I wanted to capture of buildings. A 24-200 would be so good, but at that point this would become both heavier and bigger, so it's probably a good compromise. Especially if you also go ahead and get the 14-28 lens. It's a perfect combo with the 28-200, and also because the 14-28 is a very similar size and weight, so with those two lenses you can cover a massive 14-200mm range. When I first took this lens out of the box, I was shocked. I was expecting a lens that's double this size, something similar to the 70-200 f4, but wow, this 28-200 lens is basically the 20-60 kit lens size. And that makes it such a versatile run and gun lens, perfect for those of you who are just getting started with Lumix cameras and want the most range possible. This lens is optimized for video, so it has minimal focus breathing, great autofocus, and it also has smooth aperture adjustment throughout its zoom range. The 28-200 has optical image stabilization, which works together with the in-body sensor stabilization. This gives you 6.5 stops. So even at 200mm, it is very stable. Dual IS is handy for slower shutter shots, and also because this lens is an f7.1 at the telephoto ends, it is good to have stabilization for it when you're shooting in dark conditions. I wouldn't really use this lens much for fast-paced video productions myself because of the not constant aperture. It is totally fine for filming travel content. And talking about video, there are also two more stabilization options you can enable in the settings of a Lumix camera. There is the electronic stabilization, which crops in a little bit and gives you a bit more stable shots, but there also is Boost IS, which only should be used if you want to create tripod-like shots. When Dual IS is on together with the E-stabilization and Boost IS, it will give you an insanely stable image, even at 200mm. And if you hold your breath, you'll get a rock solid shot. And this is another lens from Lumix that has 67mm front filter thread. This is super important when switching lens filters. All my Lumix primes and the 20-60 are all 67 filter thread, which makes it really fast to switch ND filters between the setups. Now let's talk about the macro capabilities of this lens. When the lens is at its widest, 28mm, you can focus up to 3 centimeters from the front glass element of the lens. This is super close, and you probably should take off the front hood when taking macro shots. But once you zoom into the 200mm range, the closest focusing distance from the front glass element will be around 50 centimeters. So macro will only be available at the wider focal lengths. For my travel, apart from a kit zoom lens, I always bring at least 2 of the f1.8 prime lenses with me. That's usually the 18 and 35mm. They are small and fantastic in low light. There was a few times I wanted to take the 70-200 lens with me. This is an f4 lens, so it is brighter, but it is quite chunky, big, and heavy. For comparison, the 28-200 is pretty much half the size and so much lighter. So it's basically one of those general purpose lenses, and it's super convenient. You can just chuck it in your daily carry and always have a very long focal length with you anywhere. Talking about a daily carry, I want to shout out Nomadic. I've been using the Peter McKinnon 25-liter backpack with 2 cubes for the last half a year, and it's been fantastic. I traveled with it around New Zealand, America, Japan, and China. I can even fit the S5 2X with a serial anamorphic lens in the top compartment and a bunch of prime lenses, batteries, and camera accessories in that backpack, as well as a 16-inch laptop. Now, let's jump back into talking about the 28-200. It's just over 400 grams. For comparison, the E-mount Tamron 28-200 f2.8-256 is 576 grams. So it's brighter but heavier, and it does not have image stabilization or the half macro capability. Sony also has the 24-240 f3.5-6.3, which is a bit wider on either side, but that comes at a heavy cost of 780 grams in weight, which is pretty much twice as heavy as this. So who is this lens for? I think it's really good for those of you who are getting started with Lumix cameras and want that all-around lens, but also for those who are taking lenses on travel and you don't want to pack heavy. You want to have the lightest, most portable and versatile lens, and this can easily sneak into your backpack and you won't even know. Personally, I can't wait to use this lens more for travel. Let me know what you think about the 28-200 down in the comments below, and I'll see you next time.